Good morning, everybody. We have made it to Black Monday, as they call it. It is the day after the end of the regular season. And later today, we will see many coaches get the axe. We will see many coaches be let go. We will see many franchises and organizations move in a different direction. And I'm posting this video much earlier than I usually post videos because I want my team to be one of those teams. And I want to go ahead nice and early, get my case out there now, say what I have to say, and make sure it's really understood why I want a new head coach. I want a new coaching staff. I want a new regime in Seattle. And I'm saying it now because about a week from now, I'm not going to want those things. About a week from now, when other teams have made their firings and made, in many cases, their hirings, or at the very least laid the groundwork for their hirings, I'm not going to want to fire anybody. I'm not going to want to get rid of anybody because the best candidates will already be off the board in many cases. So this has to happen quickly. It has to happen quickly because odds are very good that within the next few days even. And I know some of these coaches are still in the playoffs, they're still coaching in the postseason, so they can't agree to anything. But you know these teams are laying groundwork. You know the teams that have openings are starting the conversation on some level. So if it happens, it should happen quickly. This should not be a Marty Schottenheimer situation where you make the decision a month after the season ends and you end up with no good candidates to interview because you waited so long. So, quite simply, I want the Seahawks to part ways with Pete Carroll, and I want them to hire a new head coach. And I'm making this video to talk a little bit about why, and then once it's out there, it's out there. And you give it a little bit of time. If the Seahawks don't make a move, then I'm going to change my mind. I'm going to be like, okay, now I don't, because all the desirable guys are already getting snatched up. So, Black Monday, is it likely that anything happens? No, of course not. I've long made my peace with the fact that Pete kind of has a blank check here, at least for the moment, mostly because of the ownership situation, but there might also be some other extenuating circumstances mixed in there that gives him kind of carte blanche to do whatever he wants to do, be as bad as he wants to be, and still keep his job. But that doesn't mean I'm not going to talk about it. So, yeah, fire Pete Carroll. That's what I'm going to say here. Clearly, the guy isn't that interested in walking away. I don't see any motivation or interest on his part to just walk away and say, look, I've done what I can. The results haven't been so great lately. I'm starting to lose it a little bit. I'm just going to be real and I'm going to extricate myself so I don't have to be extricated. That's not happening. If it was going to happen, it would have happened by now. So you're going to have to force the issue. So I'm going to say it after the season we just had. And let me be very clear here. It's not because we didn't make the playoffs or we didn't win 10 games or we lost this game or we lost that game. It's not because, oh, we didn't win the Super Bowl this year. Okay? Those are not any good reasons to want to fire a coach. I don't believe that you should boil things down to that simple of an argument where you didn't win the Super Bowl, so therefore you should fire your coach. Of course not. That's not how things work in the real world. But I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry to say it. He's not doing his job anymore. And that is best represented. It's represented by many things. It's represented by the performance of this defense in the 2023 season. So, as of the end of all the football games yesterday, they haven't taken the Dolphins Bills ending into account yet, but it doesn't matter because both those defenses were ranked a decent amount better than the Seahawks defense. Here is where the Seahawks have landed. They are 30th in the league in yards allowed, so they are bottom 3 in allowing yards. Bottom 3. And they are 25th 25th in allowing points. All right? 30th and 25th. So they are bottom 8 in allowing points. bottom 8. And by the way, when the Dolphins get their score updated, their number's actually going to go down a little bit. So they're actually going to move up this list a tiny bit, if anything. But they're not moving below us, so that's not going to change. So yeah, 25th, bottom 8, bottom 25th percentile. I know there are other stats out there that you can use, other stats that you can look at to determine how good a defense actually is in terms of efficiency. But points per game and yards per game is a really good starting point, bare minimum, right? I think we can all agree on that, right? Yards and points are at least a good starting point, and the Seahawks rank very poorly in both areas. In fact, you guys might remember I did this earlier this season, and now that the season's over, we can do it again. I compared the defense we have this year to other defenses we've had. And would you look at that? This is the worst Seahawks defense under Pete Carroll ever. The 2023 Seahawks defense is the worst defense Pete Carroll has ever produced. And I know people are going to talk about Clint Hurt. Yes, Clint Hurt is bad. Yes, Clint Hurt is a significant downgrade from Ken Norton, and that is saying something given how lackluster Ken Norton was. Yes, we would probably be a little bit better if we didn't have Clint Hurt. But guess what? The defense wasn't good with Ken Norton either. All right? The defense didn't have either of those guys in 2017 when this streak started. 2017, they had Chris Richard. Who's been the constant that whole time? It's Pete Carroll. Pete Carroll's worked his way through 3 different defensive coordinators since he's produced his last good defense. 25th in points, tied for his worst ever, with 2022 last year and 2010 his first year here. 30th in yards allowed, the worst he's ever done. He's never been lower than 28th until now. So, on the surface, this is the worst Seahawks defense that Pete Carroll has ever put on the field. And yes, it is his defense. Clint Hurt does some stuff. Clint Hurt has something to do with this. I understand that. But don't you dare try to tell me that Clint Hurt completely ripped out all of Pete Carroll's stuff and implemented his own terrible defense, and that's why... No. That would never happen. Not in a million years. And it didn't happen. We saw it on the field not happen. So, this is where Pete Carroll is failing. How many times are we going to give him the opportunity to build a good defense post-Legion of Boom and then watch it not work? And then you have to consider the investment. And I've done this before too, but we got to do it again because the team continues to make me have to do it again with what they put on the field. Look at the guys they have on defense. Draymond Jones, big free agency contract. Jaron Reed brought in on a free agent contract. Decent money. Leonard Williams made a big trade to bring him in. Boye Mafe, second round pick. Jordan Brooks, first round pick. Bobby Wagner brought in on a decent sized free agency contract. Darrell Taylor, second round pick. Devin Witherspoon, first round pick. Julian Love, decent sized free agency contract. Quandre Diggs, trade, and then fat extension. Rico Wilmer. Okay, that's a little bit of a lower cost one, but guess what? He's also one of your better players on defense overall, so it's not like you can look at Rico Wilmer and say, hey, he's the problem. No, he's part of the solution. Derek Hall, second round pick. Kobe Bryant, fourth round pick. Trey Brown, fourth round pick. You've got guys like Uchenna Nwosu. Everyone's going to talk about Uchenna Nwosu. I know. Everybody's going to talk about Uchenna Nwosu. Maybe a little bit of Jamal Adams. Guys, Uchenna Nwosu being out for the year, most of the year, it sucks. That hurt the defense. But everybody's dealing with injuries right now. That Buffalo Bills defense that won the division last night and got the 2 seed has dealt with so many more injury problems than we have. All right? That Buffalo defense in points per game is 5th in the league. And they've done that even though, actually, I think after yesterday's game gets accounted for, it's going to be 4th in the league. And look at the guys they've lost. They've lost Daquan Jones. They lost, what's his name? Matt Milano. They lost one of their stud safeties. They lost 3 studs on defense this year. What they're dealing with is so much worse than what the Seahawks are dealing with, and they've dealt with it infinitely better. So, don't say nothing about injuries, okay? Jamal Adams played most of the season, and our defense was not that much better when he was out there. In fact, some people argued it was better when he was not out there. I don't know if that's true or not, but you had him for most of the season, and the defense still wasn't good. And hey, there's a big investment in Jamal Adams. You made the monster trade, and then you gave him the monster extension. And these are players that you wanted. These are players that you chose. These were not players that were forced upon you. So the investment is there, but there's no return on investment. Bottom line. That's the point I'm trying to make here. There are plenty of other arguments you can use. The fact that the team was clearly not motivated properly against the Steelers a couple weeks ago when they had everything to play for and they lost to a third-string quarterback at home. You can point to the fact that it's Pete Carroll who hires guys like Clint Hurd at the end of the day, so it's still his fault. You can point to the lack of playoff success since the Legion of Boom broke up. You can point to all these different things. But this is the number one thing I'm going to point to here. 7 straight years of not having a good defense, despite every opportunity to build one, despite massive investments. 7 straight years where you haven't been in the top 10 in scoring. It's not good enough. All right. So there are plenty of other arguments I could make to fire Pete Carroll, to get rid of him, to move on, to do something else. But this is the best one, as far as I'm concerned. This one can't really be disputed or debated. It's a long period that it's been judged on, and it's not good enough. And if anybody out there thinks this is good enough for a highly paid defensive guru coach, then I'd say that person needs to get a little bit of a higher standard. All right, so Pete Carroll, it's been a great run, but I'd love to see something different next year. And I don't expect to get it. I really don't. But I'm going to put my case out there nevertheless. And if anybody out there doesn't like it, too bad. No one made you watch the video. You clicked, not me. So we're going to be moving on after today, after this video, onto other topics of discussion for these Seahawks. See you guys later.